Most people think it's just flying a drone, but a killer FPV one-shot is much more than that. It's timing, choreography, direction, and control, all synchronized into a single take. And if a single thing goes wrong or is messed up, your entire shot is forfeit. This is likely why FPV one-takes have exploded in popularity. There's something magically authentic about capturing an entire scene in one coherent, uncut, untethered shot. I've spent the last 5 years flying and capturing a handful of these, some which have reached millions of people and granted me incredible opportunities. So today I'm walking you through how I made this FPV one-shot for drone leading brand DJI, from concept to chaos to delivery, so you can learn a little bit more about the process behind what it takes. I've broken down the process into 4 main phases to make it easier to follow, starting with phase 1, ideation. When DJI reached out requesting a one-shot for me to film, we brainstormed a couple concepts. The 2 I decided to work on were an e-bike factory tour video and a camping video. This was one I'd been wanting to do for a while, but never before made the excuse to do. Once we landed on this concept, we talked a little bit more about what this could look like. And this is where I have to give credit where it's due, because there's one guy in particular who came to mind as a strong source of inspiration. Huge shout out to Sebastian Schieren. He's a creator and FPV pilot who's pushed the bar on outdoor shots, and he still continues to do so today. When conceptualizing, there was a moment we really liked and we wanted to reference of his. It's flying through the gap made between a stream of coffee and someone's arm. Now, I never want to just rip an idea one-to-one. First of all, that's messed up. Second of all, I see Sebastian not only as a creative inspiration, but also as a creative rival. So copying him directly wouldn't be a good look, you know? So instead, the challenge here was figure out how do we take this inspiration and how do we turn it into something else unique. During the ideation phase, I like to note down the objectives I want the project to accomplish. For this video, I wanted to grab people mid-scroll so they watch, immerse them in the entire scene through a singular, intimate, coordinated movement, and make this an experience they'll remember by pushing the bar creatively, choreographically, and technically as possible. Easy, right? Once we've mapped out our ideation, that brings us to phase 2, organize. This means arranging all the components we need to make the shot happen, starting with what I deemed would be the key subject in the shot, the camper van. The only thing is, I unfortunately don't have a camper van yet. So I scoured my contacts, DM'd a few friends, posted stories, reached out to my immediate network in any way I could think of. It took a couple days of trying, but thanks to my friend Kyle, I was introduced to O'Neill, an outdoor lover who owns his own beautiful, custom-built camper van. Kyle connected us, and honestly, this experience further emphasized just how important it is to work with the right people, because O'Neill was a champ. By the time of our first call, we kicked it off and we got so much done. We talked through his van's features, what was and wasn't possible, his availability, and even locations. For this video for DJI, I thought we should take full advantage and show off our beautiful home coast of California. And thanks to O'Neill's own outdoor exploration experience and my Google Maps scouting skills, we were able to decide on locations pretty quick. It had to be a space we could legally fly in, had an ocean view during golden hour, and enough space for us to be able to choreograph something dynamic. Once we agreed on a date and time, next was deciding what props and characters would allow us to color our scene as uniquely as possible. I listed out every prop and action I could think of that could enhance the scene, and we put out a call for any friends who might be willing to be part of our little project. One of the reasons I love drones is because of how much creative freedom they can unlock, without the need to lug around heavy gear like a camera, lenses, and a tripod. But when I want to get story shots of myself, it becomes almost impossible to get those candid moments while I'm operating a drone, because I have to be either on the sticks or in the goggles. This is where one of my favorite additions to my kit comes in, the Hover Air X1 Pro Max. And I've genuinely come to love this thing. This is an AI-powered drone that flies itself. No controller, no goggles needed. You just launch it from your hand, and it uses vision-based tracking to follow you, orbit you, or perform one of several pre-programmed flight paths. No piloting necessary. And I know what some people are probably thinking. Can something this small actually produce good footage? As I tested this thing's 8K recording in log color profiles, and 4K 120 frames per second filming, I slowly became convinced that this does have a place in cinematic content creation. With all that, it's still less than 200 grams. So in addition to not needing to be registered, I barely feel this thing in my bag. You combine that camera quality with this 3-axis gimbal that's built in. I've used this thing to film myself walking, hiking, and even biking through the streets of Vietnam. And it's achieved me shots I never thought I'd be able to get by myself. So if you're a solo creator looking to upgrade your kit without adding weight or stress, I'd highly recommend checking out the Hover Air X1 Pro Max. There's a link in my description if you want to learn more or grab it while it's on sale. Now, back to the video. Step by step, we assembled our supporting cast and crew, mostly consisting of our online, real life, and mutual friends. Without their hands, this video would turn out way more bland. But with all these different options comes the extra layers of complexity to piece together a bunch of moving parts into a single take. That brings us to phase 3, planning the actual shot. The goal was to take all of these ideas and stitch them together into a single fluid sequence. A common choice I see in FPV one takes is people flying forward most of the time, which makes sense because that's the easiest way to pilot. If you fly sideways or backwards, you're flying kind of blind. But in order to push the bar, sometimes you gotta send it a little bit. So to combat this, I opted for my trusty DJI Avata 2 as the tool for the job, and looked for ways we could break the forward movement by tracking subjects, changing direction, and adjusting the gimbal's tilt, crafting a path that keeps you guessing what's coming next. Now, typically it would be ideal to have a day of location scouting so that the path can be choreographed ahead of time. But since there were so many uncertain factors in the air, I couldn't fully plan the shot until the day of. So I opted to arrive at the location a couple hours early to speed run the flight plan. I brought my drone up, visualized the options, and after flying a couple times, mapped out a path that would bring us through the entire scene in a whole aerial perspective. Now, of course, planning is one thing, but the final step, execution, is a whole different beast. So in my experience, because of the nature of one-take shots, it's a little bit hard to get started before everything is fully planned out. Yes, you could go the route of shooting and then making iterations, but who's to say that you spent that take getting the incomplete final, but that take doesn't end up being what you wanted because you want to make adjustments. So I like to plan out everything as much as possible, then go for it. That being said, by the time I was done planning, we had 1 hour left before the sun was gonna set. So we had to speed run this as fast as possible. And here's something I've also learned through my past experiences at the beach. As the sun sets, the wind typically gets stronger, which is not good for drone operation. And if one single thing messed up our timing, the whole shot was toast. And you can believe this happened multiple times, trying to get everything perfect in an environment we didn't have full control over. Probably what ended up being one of the hardest things to nail was actually Jalen pouring the soda into the cup in the windy weather, because the soda apparently would kind of fly everywhere based off of the direction the wind was blowing, and her arm was getting drenched. So thank you for putting through with that, Jalen, and also props to Sebastian because he makes it look a lot easier than it typically is. After copious factors killing our shots, we were losing time. As the sun dipped lower, my drone's camera was starting to suffer. Without enough lights from the sky, the image was starting to get muddy, and we were on the brink of unusable footage. This meant at this point, we only really had enough time for one more take. So we took a deep, collective, frazzled breath, synced up, locked in, and this was our final shot.
3, 2, 1, action! Yes! Okay, that looked really good, y'all.
if you're still here this late in the video, you're a real one. And for that, I'm gonna share with you my biggest takeaways from this shoot. 1. Budget way more time than you think you need for planning and setup. If I'd known things were gonna take this long, I would have arrived even earlier to start visualizing and practicing. One thing that I feel like I could get better at is I typically try to save the flight time for the moments of the shoot. And in moments where I could be flying and practicing and rehearsing, I typically tend to sit out on those. So one thing I'm learning is to just get as much flight time as I can possibly have. And in situations where flying isn't possible until the moment of, really figure out how can I simulate this mentally? How can I simulate it in the simulator? And how can I simulate it before the day of? So when I get there, everything is locked in mentally as much as I can have it. 2, if a moment in the shot feels overwhelming, test these sections individually and then slowly, gradually starts to stitch them together. As opposed to biting off more than you can chew for a whole shot, isolate each of these moments and fly and move through them so that it makes sense. 3 is, if you can, record your own sound effects on set, even if it's just with your phone. I try to do this on my shoots so that we have as authentic a sound as possible, but because we ran out of time, Roger and I had to sit down and scour through the internet and our libraries for appropriate sounds and put them in post. Now, this is always an option, but if you want to save yourself some time, then just recording on set can save a lot of it. If you have any questions about FPV one takes or your own experiences with this, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to talk shop with you. And if you liked this breakdown, check out this video right here. I think you'll like it. Or that one. Maybe that one. Maybe that's the one you want. Either is good. Just pick one, and I'll see you in there. Thanks for watching. This has been Kai, and I'll catch you in the next one. Or the next one. Peace.